Chris? No, we're good. Okay, it is 7 o'clock, Thursday, March 28th, 2019. I call this meeting of the Bellevue Planning Commission to order. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Casey?
Present.
Mr. Perrin?
Here.
Ms. Kane?
Present.
Mr. Arney?
Present.
Mr. Jacobson?
Present.
Mr. Ackley?
Here.
Ms. Cutsforth?
Present.
Mr. Ritz? Ms. Smith?
Here.
We have a quorum. Our next item on the agenda is this meeting will be conducted in accordance with the Nebraska Open Meetings Act, a copy of which can be found on the back of the wall of the chambers back there that's framed. At this time, I'd ask all commissioners and audience members to please silence or turn off your cell phones, any other electronic devices that could disrupt our meeting. We have a fairly full house tonight, so the exit is straight back through that door. Around the corner to the right are not only the meeting materials, but also the restrooms eventually down around the hallway if you need to. As you enter and exit the chambers tonight, we do have a large number of people here and a fairly full agenda, so if you would, please exit as quietly as you possibly can. After each item has been completed and your interest in that item is done, you're welcome to leave the chambers again quietly. Sometimes people want to discuss what's transpired after that. We are still holding a public hearing on other items, so I would ask if you do that, you go around the corner or outside where it's a little bit easier to conduct business inside. Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is to approve our February 28th, 2019 regular meeting minutes. I'd entertain a motion to revise or approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes of the February meeting.
I move to approve the minutes of the February 28th, 2019 regular meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, so a motion by Kane, second by Cutsforth. Thank you. Commissioners, please vote.
Ms. Smith, could I get your vote? All in favor? Motion carried.
Okay, great, thank you. Our next item on the agenda is to accept into record all staff reports, attachments, memos, handouts, excuse me, regarding each application. Staff, any updates?
We did receive an email today from Betty Neal regarding the annexation of a lot in area number 6. She was opposed to that annexation. And I also received additional departmental reviews for the annexation in general, and I'll be discussing those when we get to those specific hearings.
Okay, great, thank you. Do I have a motion to accept all information, memos, and handouts, and the new emails into record?
I'll make the motion to accept into record all staff reports, attachments, memos, handouts regarding each application.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. Second?
Second.
Second was Mr. Arney. Thank you. Commissioners, please vote.
All in favor? Motion carried.
Great, thank you. Our next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda tonight. Is there any commissioner wishing to speak on this? Or have it moved to the general public hearing? Seeing none, we'll let the consent agenda stand as it is. Is there anyone willing to make a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Read what it is.
The item is to request final plots lots 1 through 121, outlots A through G, Bel Largo South, being a replat of lots 20 through 22, and outlots B, G, and H, Bel Lago, and platting on the southwest quarter of the northwest quarter section of all located in Section 8, Township 13N, R13E of the 6th Prime Meridian, Sarpy County. The applicant was HRC Bel Lago. Motion to accept the consent agenda on this one item.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion to approve by Ackley, second by Kane. Thank you.
All in favor? Motion carried.
I'm pausing a minute to let it show up on the screen. Nope. Okay, we'll move on. But prior to moving on, this item will go to the City Council as our recommendation on 4/8 approval. Our next item on the agenda is our public hearings for this evening. A couple words before we get into the public hearings. We have 6 public hearings this evening. I will announce each case and then ask if there are any updates from the planning department on that case. After that, the applicant will have an opportunity to present their request. After the request has been heard, the public will be allowed public testimony on each item. Those testifying should come to the podium, state and spell your name and address, please, sign in. Testimony should be limited to 5 minutes, and I reserve the right to shorten that time if we have a large number of people attending, which we do tonight. Many of you have interest in a specific agenda item. If you're willing to caucus and make your points known to a representative, that can speed things along. If not, we'll accept the public hearing as it is, but we may, again, shorten that down to much less time if we need to move through our agenda. At that time, I'll close the public hearing, invite the commissioners to make their wishes known, which may include requests for clarifications, other discussions, as well as a motion to approve or disapprove, which will be followed by a second as desired by the commissioners. At that time, I'll restate the motion as needed, resolve any issues specifically to the actual motion being made. We won't rediscuss it at that time, and the applicant will move forward on that. After that, we'll take a vote and wait for it to post onto that. One other thing that we'll do tonight is that after we get through item 3A and start with the annexation ones on 3B, I'll pause for a second, and the City of Bellevue will introduce all the annexations, and then we'll move through each item as we go through that. So the first item is 3A, request to approve Old Town redevelopment project plan. The location is 204 through 210 West Mission Avenue, lots 1 and 3, Civic Center Plaza, and 2216 through 2218 Franklin Street, lots 4, 5, 6, block 181 Bellevue. The applicant is First City Development, LLC. And I'm assuming that as you sign in, and if you would mention your name, you are the applicant or representative of.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Brent Beller, 11440 West Center Road, appearing on behalf of the project applicant First City Development. With me today is John Jungers, part of the development team, along with Mark Westergaard with E&A Consulting Project Engineer. As you just stated, before you is the redevelopment plan for an area of Bellevue that you all know very well, obviously with the old police headquarters, city offices, the city annex building, and then lots 4 and 5, which are actually owned by the city, which is former offices. What's before you now is a redevelopment plan to revitalize, redevelop this area. The project before you is conceptual in nature in the sense that this is the plan, this is our goal, this is our mission to get done. And it's a pretty unique opportunity for the city in the sense that the area and the characteristics of this area and how they lend themselves to redevelopment. When you look at an area like this that is a urban core or former urban core, these areas and municipalities are ripe for development. When you look at the city of Omaha, think of Benson, Dundee, the Blackstone districts, South 10th. Those are all older established areas where They're unique in the sense that you have these little urban cores, but then you have really tight knit residential uses, which people want to be at. And this is Bellevue's opportunity to do just that. So everything we're proposing here is to kind of revitalize, breathe some new and exciting life down here, and add to the vibrancy and the neighboring uses that are ongoing right now. It's pretty unique in the sense that with the residential uses that are to the north and to the south of this center, folks are going to be able to walk and use these areas and kind of bring some new uses and folks down here. So with that said, we're talking about 5 lots here. So what we call lots 1, 2, and 3 are where the police headquarters are and the old annex building is, and then lots 4 and 5 are the former city offices, or they're just offices. We're not talking about what we call the Apollo buildings, which are those 5 kind of narrow buildings. And right now our plan does not do anything north of the alleyway. I think as time goes on and as our plan kind of comes to fruition, maybe there's folks that'll join in this, and I think we would welcome that at this point. But specifically, we're only talking about those 5 lots. What's being proposed in our conceptual plan is on lots 1 and 2 is a grocery store, a 14,000-foot grocery store. We think there's a need in the sense that there's a strong residential use in and amongst this area. There's no grocers of this size in and amongst this area of Bellevue. And we think it's a pretty good use and it's a needed use. On the lot 3 will be a 2-story, 15,000 square foot building, which will have retail on the bottom floor and then typical office uses on the 2nd floor. And then on lots 4 and 5, as you get down towards Franklin Street, this will be retail on the bottom floor. And then we're proposing kind of a mixed use development where you have some market rate apartments going on upstairs so that folks can now live, work, play all in this little area. One of the most exciting things that we think that we're bringing is the streetscape and the landscaping opportunities down here along West Mission. And it's going to bring pedestrians and folks in the walkability that there's a lot of potential for that in an area like this. It's pretty unique in the sense that the infrastructure and the streets that are down here kind of lend itself to what we're trying to do. When you look at older areas, especially I'll go back to Omaha and the Benson and the Dundee and the Blackstone, those areas, if they lack one thing, it's open, large public streets with the availability of parking. Here you have that, and that's kudos to the layout of this particular area of Bellevue, because it's going to lend itself to doing everything that we want to do as far as the streetscape. But we're thinking as people get off work and want to go somewhere for dinner, whether they live in Bellevue or Omaha, this could be a destination where people come down. Maybe there's in our little pedestrian areas that we're proposing, there's a band and you can sit outside and have dinner or drinks or something like that. So it's a pretty unique use. So all told, our cost for this deal we propose, and we're trying to be conservative on everything we're doing because we don't want to overstate the reality of what can be in an area like this, is about $10.3 million. Of that, 8.7 is true construction costs. 1.3 million of that is general site work, demo work. There's probably $150,000 of landscaping work that we're proposing in here. So all told, 10.8 million. The TIF eligible expenses, which is what the redevelopment plan will allow for as far as TIF, is $1,537,000. So that's all public infrastructure and TIF eligible expenses. So that's the request as far as TIF. When we talk about valuation, these are city-owned properties. So we've had some discussions with the county assessor as to what will projected valuations be of these properties once the city no longer owns them. We will demo these buildings. So part of that analysis is what will the county assessor use to value land down here. Based on those discussions, we kind of use $1.70 square foot per land, which established our base valuation of $125,000. Full valuation we're projecting is about $11 million once this thing is fully built and operational. Pretty conservative on what that valuation will be. In our numbers, we have the TIF paying off. We can have 15 years. We have it paying off around year 12. So again, we're mindful of not overemphasizing a project of this scale and this magnitude in this particular area. So with that said, we think there'll be about 50 new jobs coming in here with the retail and the grocer, 100 construction jobs. we're pretty excited about bringing this opportunity. It's pretty cool, and I think this is Bellevue's opportunity to have their little residential commercial area, or a newer one. And we hope that this is the impetus for other areas and other folks surrounding this to kind of jump on board and maybe see the vision that we're seeing. So with that, we're here for any questions, and we appreciate your consideration.
Great, thank you. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to come forward and make a comment or testify either in favor or against? Seeing nobody coming forward, I will close the public hearing and turn it over to the commissioners. Commissioners, your wishes? Arnie.
Question?
Sure.
Mr. Beller.
We have a question for
No,
you.
you're okay.
And after this question,
I'm giving
probably wouldn't hurt
autographs,
to stay at the podium. There might be another question.
Sure.
Mr. Beller, just a quick question. So looking at the TIF eligible cost, I see, almost a third of the TIF eligible cost is for architect fees.
That's right.
Just give us some history on how architect design of privately owned buildings plays into the TIF analysis, because to me we're using public dollars for a private building. Just kind of explain that to this group, would you please?
Yeah, so we had that discussion and talking with staff. Generally speaking, architectural fees are percentage based. So I think that percentage is about 5% of the total project cost. And we did talk to various architects as to, hey, what really will it cost? But again, when you're designing new future property tax basis, that's the thought into allowing architectural fees to be TIF eligible. Also in those fees is obviously all the public design, the streetscape, the landscaping, the public areas, the pedestrian areas. Those fees kind of go into architectural. I don't, if that's answers your question.
Yep. Yeah. Just
Okay.
from other projects you've worked on, just
Yeah.
kind of, in case there's a question as to why we're using public
It's
dollars
probably
for private.
I mean, that 5%, I think it's 5%, and maybe it's 6%. It's probably on the lower end. And again, our mission in talking to everybody is, this is a project in downtown Bellevue, Old Town Bellevue. Work with us on fees, work with us to kind of make this feasible as far as financial. And that's a big part of all of this, obviously, is watching numbers, because a lot of the concepts that you're seeing here, there's a little speck in there, in the sense that, we still got to go find the grocer, we got to find the office, we got to find the multifamily builder. So everything right now is a little cost conscious.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question. Mr. Beller, you mentioned, pursuing a grocer and other tenants. Have any of those discussions begun yet? Or
To my knowledge, they have. And I don't know if Mr. Jungers wants to come up and talk, but everything that you're seeing right now is pretty prospectus. To say that we have a grocer on board ready to do this, not necessarily. Part of what we want to do is, number one, we had to get past the just getting rights to the land. You never want to get out ahead of yourself. But now, once we get this redevelopment plan and we can go and market this property to grocers or office or even an apartment developer, that's kind of where we're at. We have had discussions. How feasible it is at this point, I'd be speculating, in all honesty.
I just think to some of the difficulty that the city of Omaha has had in getting a grocery store in the urban core in the downtown area. And I was just wondering.
And that's the one thing that is unique about this, because we've worked on projects in Omaha, and a lot of the problem with having grocers is parking and access to and bringing trucks in and deliveries. This particular site is completely different. You have access, you have wide streets, you have easy in and out on the north side using that alley. This will lend itself, in my opinion, a little bit better to some of those more urban areas in Omaha where they struggle to bring a grocer because the grocer is so heavy on, you gotta have cars, you gotta have turnarounds. Here, your streets are so wide down there that I don't think you're gonna have the issues that a lot of those folks, when they're looking for those grocers, they may run into.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kane?
Mr. Beller, has any thought been given to a vision for the architectural style of this development?
Yes. So we do have, and we're working on the conceptual renderings. And other than to say this is going to be brand new, it will be brand new. But I think there's I mean, to go back to the architectural fees, it would be out of place to design something that doesn't otherwise fit with what's there now. I'm not an architect, but I can tell you that a lot of what the design will be based around is existing architectural standards. So I know there'll be a blended appeal to what's down there now. A lot of the architectural style is obviously 1950s and 1960s, which some people think is back in. So to say there's a style that we're going for, no, not necessarily. But what we do know is it will blend with what's there now and kind of bring it up where your lighting standards and your public and your pedestrian areas are a little bit more 2019 than they were 1950 or 1960.
The apartments, what demographic would the apartments be targeted to? And then you mentioned market rents. What would you anticipate those market rents would
So when we say market rate, we really mean market rate. There won't be any, and some people get sensitive to low-income housing or anything like that. That's not what's being proposed. This is market rate. I would be lying if I said I knew what the market rate was for apartments down here in Bellevue, and maybe Mr. Jungers could opine on that. But this particular project, oftentimes you see on new development is a younger crowd to come down here. They like the live-play concept that we're trying to propose. Now, that also said, you see a lot of folks empty nesters that want to be part of that, where they can walk and grab a glass of wine or a dinner or something like that. So between those folks that don't have kids yet, and maybe the folks that are done raising their kids and they want to be somewhere close to amenities, those are the people that typically we would see coming to this market to live in the apartments.
And there was a discussion about the grocery store, and certainly you can't talk about a particular operator, but is it anticipated that this would be a Woolner's type of operator or a national chain?
I'd say both. I mean, at this point, we would take any opportunity.
Okay.
I mean, there are, I think, to answer your question, a neighborhood market type concept, not a Walmart or something. Not that there's anything wrong with Walmart, but the neighborhood concept is what we would appeal to, because there's different box retailers as far as grocers go. This particular size appeals to the neighborhood market, kind of a smaller grocer. Not the full-size Baker's, Hy-Vee. Hy-Vee and all those grocers, they all have spin-offs where it's more market-based, more neighborhood-oriented versus your big box Hy-Vee. It won't work here. You don't have the numbers down here. And so that's one thing that I know the development team will have to emphasize is, hey, you got to have a product here that services the residential flow that's here, because that is one thing you cannot change. Is we're not going to bring a whole new neighborhood to the north or a whole new neighborhood to the south. It's there, and so this grocer is for the folks that live down there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner King, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
Yeah, well, I did, but I'm going to wait till I just have a comment.
Okay.
If someone else has a question.
Great, thank you.
I've got a quick question to follow up on the businesses. At some point, obviously, the LLC's got to make a decision whether to purchase and demolish and proceed. Is that going to be solely dependent on getting the businesses to fill the spots?
Not necessarily. Our plan is to close on the acquisition towards the end of this year. So now that we're starting that feasibility period with the city as far as our acquisition, it's full speed ahead on trying to find users, because we want to be in a position come the end of this year, I'm talking late fall, where we have potential users or folks to do the vision and carry it out. So in our minds, we're closing on this land later this year. The buildings get demoed at that point, and construction starts first part of 2020 in the hopes that you have buildings online come late 2020, most likely in the construction market that we have right now with everything else that's going around, 2021.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments?
Yes, I have a comment. I'm in favor of this particular development. First of all, it meets all the state requirements for tax increment financing. It increases the property value. There's not a tax forgiveness, and you've spoken about paying your TIF within 12 years rather than the 15. Taxes are still going to be paid. The project has to have a benefit to the public. This is going to have a great benefit to the public, and I thank you and Mr. Jungers and the other individuals who have thought about this. And it's going to increase the retail sales tremendously, which is going to add benefits to our schools, to the city as a whole. It's the right area to develop, and it's consistent with the comp plan.
Thank you. I have two questions for you. Sure. I appreciate you explaining about market rate. That was one of them, to make sure we were all on the same page on that. One of the things that we run into, and I'm very encouraged by what you've said, is how do we integrate a activity center or a destination into the rest of the community? And so you did a very good job in terms of talking about walkability to this location. And of course, again, Bellevue has the attraction of having a wider road and wide sidewalks, which is a plus, and the rest of Bellevue's flat, right, which makes it very walkable. But you didn't mention anything too much about bicycling or electric cars. And while the history of Bellevue goes all the way back to horses, I think the trend we're going to see is more electric cars on the road and more bicyclists. Millennials tend to like to bike as much as they do walk. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you integrate walkability and bikeability into the neighborhood. And that may be more of a question for staff than for you, but I'm interested in hearing the integration of not only what you're proposing on the property that we've got but how it integrates into the rest of the community.
I think I wholeheartedly agree. While I'm not a millennial, I'm a very big cyclist, and I utilize all the, Jewel Park and Swanson and everything else. Huge advocate for cycling. I don't think there's anybody on our team that will say no to any of that. And I think if that's our commitment to work with staff to make sure that bicycling and electronic cars and stay up to date with what the 2019 trends are, wholeheartedly support that.
Thank you. One of the statistics that's always stays in my mind is I think last year 6,000, 7,000 of the fatalities that were traffic related were pedestrians. And so we're talking about a community that's activity location that's going to be walkable. So it's very present in my mind that we don't create a destination that is anything but enjoyable for the residents here and outward in the community. So thank you.
Sure.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments? I would entertain a motion. If not,
I'll make a motion for approval based upon conformance with the comprehensive plan, elimination of blighted and substandard area ordinance, conformance with the requirements of state statutes, and the opportunity for redevelopment of Old Town.
Second.
Second by Cutsforth. Ms. Kane made the motion. Commissioners, please vote.
All voted yes, motion carried.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda, item 3B through 3F, actually, and each one will be addressed separately, is our annexation ones. The applicant is the same applicant in each one, that is the city of Bellevue. So prior to getting to the public hearings for each one, I will ask the applicant if you have any comments to make prior to going through the rest of the agenda.
Yes, I do. The City of Bellevue administrative staff and department heads and some others held a strategic planning session in February of this year. One of the things that came out of that, and one of the things that Mayor Hike had talked about during the campaign, was annexation, bringing people that are right along the city limits into the city, some of those who are already receiving benefits from the city, and also the need to maybe exercise some of the city's power over, especially in the code enforcement area, over some areas that are outside the city where we don't have jurisdiction at this point. The 5 areas here tonight are part of a 9-area annexation package of unincorporated areas around the current city limits. The next 4 will be at Planning Commission in April for public hearing. There are a total, I think we got 180 lots tonight, probably a total of 350, the whole package. couple of things. We did get for the commissioners' information, additional reports from other departments. Primarily the street department is going to be impacted the most. For this package, actually for the entire package, we may have to tweak what we call Area 9 regarding some bridges on Fort Crook Road. So we may tweak that area so they don't come into our jurisdiction. But otherwise, the main area for improvements would be Area 3 up in the Barrett's area for some street improvements. The police department, again, as I put in the memo, one additional code enforcement officer for some of these areas. The bigger projects would be CIP projects in the next 3 to 5 years as the Public Works Department plans those, reviews the projects, plans those, and gets them programmed into the budget and CIP. So the street department is certainly prepared to make the infrastructure improvements that are needed. Discussed this with the city administrator and finance director yesterday, and they think we are able to make those improvements as needed and serve these areas without negatively affecting the rest of the city as far as increased taxes for them to pay for any of these new areas. A couple of things that always come up with annexation, zoning. Everybody that we're annexing is currently in our extraterritorial jurisdiction for zoning, so there will be no effect on anybody with respect to, you know, oh, my property is owned this, what's annexation going to do to the property? Nothing. It will have no effect on that. One thing, and I know it's out there, excuse me, all of this will result in a property tax increase for all properties annexed. They will be subject to the city tax levy. One thing they do it does go away though, is the fire district levy that is currently on your tax bill. It's hard to say specifically for each of you what that tax change might be, because we have several school districts out there, several fire districts out there that combine to create the tax levy for these properties. But if somebody's got a specific question, we'll try to answer that. And specific questions for the areas annexed, I'll try to get to. Probably will not comment on just general comments regarding, you know, desire or not desire to be annexed. Obviously, the commission will take note of those comments and go ahead and make their decision. The process for the public hearings, again, we have 5 different areas tonight. The chair, Mr. Jacobson, will read area number 1 first. We will ask for people to comment on area number 1. The area, if you don't know what area you're in, they will be shown on the screens here, and they're also out back. And then after we've had all the comments and I've answered any questions I can, it'll be turned over to the commission for discussion and action tonight. And we will follow that same procedure for each of the 5 areas tonight. And in my report, I said I'd give you a recommendation after seeing the street department report and the discussion I had with the administrator and the finance director. We do recommend that all these areas be approved for annexation. It does not negatively impact the finance of the city to do this annexation, and we feel we can serve all the areas properly.
Great. Thank you. Before we move to the next item on our agenda, which would be 3B Annexation Area 1, I do want to back up to the previous item, and if I didn't mention it, that recommendation of approval will go to the city on April 22nd for the Bellevue redevelopment plan. Our item we're going to discuss next is item 3B, the Annexation Area 1. This is a request to annex Lot 2, Danielle's Farm Edition, except that portion lying west of Quail Creek, lots 4 and 5. Donnell Farm Addition Lot 2, Donnell Farm Addition Replat 1, Lots 1 and 2, Chadwick Apartment Additions Lot 1, Catherine Addition Tax Lots 13 and 26, Section 32, Township 14 North, Range 13th east of the 6th Prime Meridian. Part of the northeast quarter of the section southeast quarter, north of road, Section 32, Township 14 North, Range 13 east of the 6th Prime Meridian. Part of Tax Lot 17, A1A, line east of 40th Street, Section 5, Township 13 North, Range 13th east of the 6th Prime Meridian. Tax Lots 16B, 17A1B, 17A1, 17B, and 18B, Section 5, Township 13 North, Range 13th east of the 6th Prime Meridian, all abutting county road right-of-ways. The applicant is the City of Bellevue. And as we set the condition, we've already talked about the general comments from the applicant already. So we will move to the public hearing for annexation area 1. If you would like to speak either in favor or against annexation area 1, please step to the podium, sign your name, and state your name out loud as you fill out your address as well. Seeing nobody coming forward to speak.
I'm sorry?
Which is area 1? I can't hear very well back here. 36 and Cape Art?
It is, the area shown on the map is the area 36th and Cape Art area up to along Highway 370 at 42nd Street.
If you would, sign in and state your name for the
My
record,
name's
please.
Dick Daniel,
Thank you.
3906 Cape Art. Well, I was wanting to ask or request, I own tax lots 17A and 17, I believe. 17B, 18B, along 39th and Cape Art, farmstead. Been in our family for probably 100 years. I'm requesting or asking that we not be annexed in there. I see no benefits by being annexed. I own my own water, my own septic systems. I'd be penalized if we are annexed because of having to pay a higher sales tax on anything brought to my farm out there. And I'm also on the cemetery board down around 36th and Cape Art, or Henderson Grove Cemetery rather. And we were annexed several years ago, and we tried to get the city to come out there and help us plow some snow and help with the flag that was stuck on a flagpole, and the city couldn't make it out there for that. So, but my main thing is asking for a request to not be annexed into the city through my 2 tax lots.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anybody else coming forward to speak, either for or against the annexation area 1? Seeing nobody coming forward, I will close the public hearing for annexation area 1. Commissioners, your wishes?
I have a question for staff.
Commissioner Arndt?
Yeah,
just to
sorry.
get in the record.
Up in the top left there, there's kind of that, we're still gonna have a little spot there that's not annexed. Is that a current SID there? I think there's some commercial property there on the east side of 42nd Street.
Yes, that's SID 182. It's called 370 Point. In addition to these areas, unincorporated areas that we're looking at annexing, we're looking at annexing a number of SIDs that will probably come later this summer, and that is one of them that we will be looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions, commissioners? Wishes? Commissioner Smith.
Motion to approve the request to annex annexation area number 1 based on conformance with state statutes and city ordinances, and also based on benefit to the city of Bellevue.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Arney. Commissioners, please vote.
All in favor? Motion carried.
Recommendation of approval will go to the City Council on April 22nd. Next item is item 3C on our agenda, that is Annexation Area 2. This is the request to annex lots 1 and 2, Watson's replat 11, or 1-1. Lots 1, 2, and 3, Mr. T's addition, Lot 1, Cornelius addition on Lot 1 and north 100 feet. Lot 3, Dvorsky's Commercial Industrial Subdivision, number 11. Lot 1, Bellevue Cable Television Community Replat, Company Replat, tax lots 30C, 30D, Section 20, Township 14, North Range 13 East on the 6th Prime Meridian, tax lots E, FA, A1, F2, F1, A2, and F1B, Section 28, Township 14th, North Range 13 East of the 6th Prime Meridian. Part of the northeast quarter of the northwest quarter west of Railroad, parcel numbers 01, 06, 09, 733, Section 28, Township 14, North Range 13th, east of the 6th Prime Meridian, and all abutting county road right-of-way. The applicant again is the city of Bellevue.
Mr. Chair, I need to recuse myself from this application.
Okay.
Conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you. Let the record show that Commissioner Ackley has left the chambers at 7:41. As with our previous annexation item, I will now open the hearing to the public. Anybody wishing to speak either for or against annexation area 2, please come forward, state your name, and sign in.
Dale Watson, coming to you on Watson's replat 2, lots 1 and 2. I would ask that this board not take the agricultural ground, which is lot 2, because A, it lies in the floodplain. B, I don't really want to absorb that much more taxes. And until it's time that we would come to you and ask you to rezone it to a higher zoning, at that time, then we would more than willingly give it up to your annexation. But at this time, I don't think for the use of the apple orchard or any part of the garden center that's going to be a good thing for me.
Okay. Would you like to add anything else?
No, that ought about do it.
Okay, thank you.
And excuse me, I'm just going to point out to the commissioners where his property, it's kind of the L shape, all that area right there is what he's asking that not be included with the annexation.
Okay, great, thank you. Is there anybody else coming forward to speak in either favor or against annexation area 2? Seeing nobody coming forward, I will close the public hearing and turn it over to the commissioners for discussion or questions. Commissioners, your wishes.
I have a question for staff. Mr. Shuchuk, your floodplains are within the city right now, correct? I mean, we have...
There are some areas of floodplain in the city and some outside the city.
Yes.
Yes. The fact that it's in the floodplain shouldn't influence the decision whether to annex or not.
Okay.
We do have areas in the city right now that are in the floodplain.
That's what I
have not excluded them in the past.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments? Motion? Commissioner Cutsworth, or who are you?
Oh,
Yep.
yes, I make a motion to approve annexation area number 2.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. Second by Commissioner Kane. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Commissioners, please vote.
All in favor? Motion carried.
Thank you. This item, as a recommendation, will go to the city on April 22nd. And I didn't see it come up on my screen, but I'm going to go ahead and move up. There it is. Move on. Item 3D is annexation.
Ask Mr. Ackley to come back.
Mr. Ackley, would you care to join us? Mr. Ackley has rejoined the meeting at 7:45. Our next item is annexation area 3. This is item 3D on your agenda. This is a request to annex lots 1 through 32 and vacated 37th Avenue Barrett subdivision, lots 1 through 6, 9 through 20, 21B, and 24 through 30. Evening View, lots 1 and 2, Evening View replat 1, lots 1 and 2, Evening View replot 2, lot 1, Clausen Acres, lots 1, 2, Page Hill, lots 1, 2, and 3, Loftus First Edition, lot 1, Potter and George replat 1, lots 6, 7, and 8, block 4, Potter and George Companies subdivision lots 2, 3, 4, 5A, 5B, 6, 7A, 7B, 8B, 8A2, 9A2, 9B, block 3. Potter and George Company subdivisions lots 1, 2, and 3, the Sislo Edition lot 1. Boganowski subdivision lots 1, Davis subdivision tax lots lot 1, 2A, 2B, 2F, and G, section 21, township 14, north, range 13 east of the 6th prime meridian, and all abutting country road rights right away. The applicant, city of Bellevue. Again, we'll move to the public hearing. This is annexation area 3, which is on the screen. Since the public is hearing, anybody wishing to come forward to make comment, please step forward, sign in, and state your name for the record, please.
Tom, excuse me, Tom Reeker, 8610 South 39th Street. And I have just I guess it's more of a general question to you folks. Most of us are on septic. Are there going to be assessments when city sewer comes in? And what kind of time frame are we looking at?
Turn that to staff.
At this time, those on septics, the annexation will not require hookup to the city sewer system. However, in the future, and as it is now, if you have a failure of your septic system and do not have room to install a replacement or to repair it, you would be required to hook up to some sort of public system. And again, that's the case now. You have to have sewer for your home.
Oh, correct.
And so right now there is no plan to do a general sewer installation infrastructure project for the area. So if and when that time comes, then it'd be up to Public Works to design that, and the city council would decide how to pay for that, and it could be through an assessment based on front footage.
All right, thank you.
And I will say before, not specifically, the street department did indicate approximately $750,000 in future street improvements for this area that would be programmed in the CIP.
Thanks. Is there anybody else wishing to come forward? If you would, sign in, state your name, please, for the record.
Alan Doty, 8613 South 39th Street.
Could you spell your last name for us, please?
D-O-T-Y.
Thank you.
In reference to the sewer and kind of being uneducated in the annex process, would any cost of sewer be from the home to, most of us that are on septics don't have inside of our homes, drainages and things that connect to a sewer from a house. So where would the cost start from for the homeowner? Would it be from the house to the sewer? In some of the areas, there's lift systems and other things that need to connect. And it sounds like you're saying the city would pay for that, but I'm just asking that specific question and maybe a couple more questions, but I'll stop with that.
That's not, if that's the impression you gave that the city would pay for it all, I try not to give that impression. It would be up to the city council at the time it's done if they want to do that through a capital project or assess it to the property owners. An assessment for the whole, I'll say, neighborhood system would be done by the width of your lot, the foot frontage you have on the street. So the total project divided by all the street length, street footage, and depending upon how big your lot is, you'd have a higher or lower assessment if that's the way it's done. And then the individual line from your house to the sewer line in the street would be all your cost. And that's the way it is for anybody who hooks into a sewer system.
Sure, and then again, you said that if you're on a septic or there's a septic tank or a failure, if you can't get replaced, then you would be required to hook up to a city or the sewer system or whatever.
Yes.
And then also, when it comes to the street repair, you mentioned, what streets are you covering? All streets that you list in this area? What cul-de-sacs,
the street superintendent reviewed the area and listed approximately $750,000 of improvements. When it comes down to time to actually do it, they would go out there again and evaluate everything that might need to be done. I assume that they would look, well, I'm sure they would look at all the streets, the cul-de-sacs in the area and say, we need to do this to this section of the street, we need to do that to, another section of the street. So it'd be a comprehensive repair, upkeep, upgrade plan from the street department.
Okay, yeah, because there's some manhole covers that, throughout the years, several 20 years plus that are, just, there's a lot of different upkeep that us in the neighborhood have been having to do ourselves, so. You have another question? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Again, if you would, please sign in.
It's
State your
Karen
name.
Doty, Karen Doty. Live at 8613 South 39th Street. So Mr. Sedgwick, he was mentioning the $750,000 of improvement for the streets. And I just want to clarify that I understand you correctly, that at the time that those improvements take place, that cost would be assessed to the homeowners based upon if their street was improved or not.
Typically, just the street repairs and upgrades are done by the city, paid for by the city. Mm-hmm. It's a new sanitary sewer system that I was referring to that could be assessed to the property owners.
All right. So, and with the street proposal, are there other streets that you intend to build that are not currently existing through properties? I know we have a street down to our property, but I also know adjacent properties are subdivided but do not have streets through them. Are there proposals for, more streets in that area?
No, and I think you've got Virginia that's not completed. There's a 37th Street that I think it's owned by people. It's been vacated. There would be no proposal for the city to do those. They wouldn't go in and clear just, nothing there now. No reason to go in and construct those streets, especially if nobody's using them.
Okay, I'm just, I'm thinking more like from a Cornhusker up through like a Giles Road or something to that effect, or something to a Chandler Road. I didn't know if something like that was in the works already, and that's all I was asking about.
Oh, no. Something from Cornhusker to Giles would be a project that would not go through your neighborhood. It may at some time 42nd Street may be connected through.
But on the east of the 36th Street, I guess is more what I'm I'm asking about.
No,
So there's nothing really presently.
no,
proposed
there's no
now.
road improvement projects
Okay.
planned such as
And
that.
then as far as the, septic failure, okay, now you have to hook up to a city sewer. Well, there's actually no infrastructure whatsoever there as far as sewer system goes. So, we're in the middle and we fail with our septic. How are we supposed to hook up to a sewer system? There's nothing there to hook up to. So we've always repaired or maintained our own sewer septic systems. And so at that point, what is the city proposing that happens? That
I think that's a problem that exists now. But if you have a complete failure of your system and it can't be repaired, actually the house would actually be red tagged. And that's the current situation, as well as something that could happen in the future. If you don't have sanitary sewer, you can't live in the home. I think being in the city limits, you have the opportunity to work with the city to get something done as far as that's concerned, whereas being in the county, not in the city limits.
And I guess that's what I'm asking. What is the something done?
Well, it depends upon the timing of the problem, what the problem is. If it's multiple failures, we'd obviously be working more to complete a bigger infrastructure project. What would happen if just one household had the problem that couldn't be repaired? I don't know that the city would undertake any sort of project for that without without the homeowner contributing substantially. So,
and the whole infrastructure to get, say, we're in Evening View as a whole, to get Evening View onto a sewer system, basically the whole, and this, if I understand correctly, that the whole cost of that is going to be taken on by the lot owners or the homeowners, and then just kind of divided up, right?
Again, if it's assessed, it's done by front footage, how big your lot is. A bigger lot, a wider frontage on the street would have a higher assessment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this topic?
Mary Riddle, 8610 South 36th Street. I have a question also about the septic systems. Where is the closest developed to us? Where is the closest developed sewer system area to our property? 8610, we're right on 36th Street between Marie and Barrett.
There's a sewer line that runs up to the east of 36th Street. You can see there's kind of where Tammy's got the cursor. It runs up through that area and serves the Grove Suburban Heights. It runs further up toward Chandler as well.
Is there a lift station there?
That's all gravity.
Oh, gravity.
It follows the creek or the ditch down.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, because, and we're thinking also, we're undeveloped over there. Everything's working fine, no problems with, anything. And, all the neighbors do abide by, what we need to do to keep the septics up and going. And that's, it's like, when you have a first and second mortgage on your house already for other projects, that kind of gets a little bit scary sometimes when you have a big cost like that. And we want to make sure that the city, will bring things to us and let us know ahead of time. And there's new people moving in. At least 4 new families have moved in the last couple of weeks. So we want to make sure that they know about this too, because they may not have got a letter or anything from Bellevue. But I also had a question about pets. because Omaha or Bellevue, City Bellevue is different licensing than unincorporated Sarpy County. Do you guys, that's what we're trying to figure out. So we go to the city licensing fees, or do we go with what we've had for years with our pets?
The fees, I don't know what, I don't know what.
If you get annexed,
If-
do,
The fees would be
Does that
whatever are
change?
charged to the city of Bellevue. I don't know how much
Oh,
different
okay.
they are from,
yeah, it's
from
different. in
from the
that.
county.
Yeah.
But
Because in unincorporated, we've been there for over 20 years, and so we just wanted to make sure that, we were understanding everything, because we've heard things in the past, so about, people hooking on and all the money they had to pay, and we want to, make sure that we're covered in all areas, our neighbors and everybody, so. Yeah, it's just, a lot of it's just about the septic and in general, so, but thank you.
Great, thank you.
I finished this.
Is there anybody else
There's a man over
wanting
there.
to come forward?
Good evening, I'm John Kempf, 3821 Barrett Drive. My question is, you said that assessment would be by frontage of the lot?
that is typically what is done, yes.
Okay, so a person living on a cul-de-sac that has to travel the entire length of the street to get to his house in the cul-de-sac pays for his 20 foot of frontage, and the person who lives on the corner pays for the street down and around?
I'm gonna say I don't know the details, and that's a detail of when, if and when it happens, the assessment. Again, I don't know in the past how they've done that as far as whether on the cul-de-sac. If you're assessed for on a corner, both frontages.
Well, the $750,000 divided by, was there 24 lots in our subdivision? That's a hell of a lot of money.
The 750 was from the street department for street repairs and upkeep. That would be something that would be planned in the CIP as a regular city budgeted item. That's not an assessment.
That's not an assessment to the homeowners?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Good, thanks.
Thank you. Is there one person step forward? Okay, thanks.
Chris. Is there water and sewer on Giles?
And your name and address for the record, please?
Blaine Shoemaker. I live at 3818 Barrett's Drive. The question I have is Virginia Street. Are you taking, or would you consider that into the annex? It being it's a dirt road and then it runs up onto Giles. Because what I'm looking at is if you would annex this and would plow our streets, would Virginia Street get plowed? Because that's another way out of our development. And would you be as good as the county? That's what I'm concerned, because the county is there just like that. I can't see Bellevue doing that, but oh well.
I would say that Bellevue has excellent snow removal services.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I can't guarantee it'll be better than the county does, because I don't know how the county does yours, but the street department always gets rave reviews for snow removal. The unimproved portion of Virginia Street, I'm gonna say I don't think the city would do anything with that. But the rest of Virginia, that that you've got driveways coming off of there, the city would do those.
I'm sorry, it would what?
The city would plow those areas. Yes.
Oh, okay, all right. I just happened to think of that, and I thought I'd ask it. So, okay, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Kate Reeker at 8610 South 39th Street. And my question is on septic, and I'm sorry, I know you're tired of it, but we kind of all talked to. So I just want to clarify, if one of our septics fails, we're not going to be allowed to put in a new one and you're going to red tag my house? Because that is what we are hearing. So I just would like to have that clarified.
If it's something that can't be repaired, and say you have a lateral field that needs to be expanded and you don't have room to expand it, then you don't have a working sanitary sewer system, and you cannot live in a house without a working sanitary sewer system.
But I'm seeing, and I'm not going to be allowed to put back in the septic. If there's space there, I'm not going to be allowed to put a new one in there again?
At this point, I'm going to say you would be.
I would be.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that makes me not quite as cranky. So. But that really is a clarification that we were not getting. So, thank you.
You did sign in, if I may ask.
I did.
Okay, thank you. Great.
Hello, my name is Danielle Finch. I'm at Potter and George Lot 2. And you were discussing that they were assessing the roads. 36th Street is very busy. Has there been any speak of adding sidewalks there?
If there's a road project, and at this point there's no road project planned for 36th Street, if it were to be reconstructed, it'd obviously be reconstructed with curb and gutter, storm sewer, and sidewalks. But again, at this point in time, there's not a project planned for 36th Street.
And I am against the annex.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anybody else coming forward to speak? You know I'm going to say this, but if you would, state your name and sign in.
Tim
Thanks.
Lind, 8310 South 36th Street. I'm against this annexation. The only thing I see getting out of it is a higher tax bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Andrew Oakes at 8309 South 39th Street. You tell me that I'm going to receive benefits. Well, or actually that we are receiving benefits. We don't receive any benefits from you, okay? We got our roads plowed by the county. You know, our road's fine. My house is all electric, okay? You know, we don't have no gas. Are you going to supply gas inside there? Okay, I have a septic system. Are you going to supply water? It's bad enough when MUD cannot find my shutoff valve because it's 3/4 of the way up Giles Road. Okay, so I would ask you not to accept it because we are fine where we are. You know, I pay, by mistake by the assessors, for the last 20 years, my lot was assessed Bellevue City taxes until we moved there, and I caught it, and I went to the assessor's office where they made a mistake, okay? It was $660. Our house is only a $145,000 home, okay? I'm sure all these other people here are gonna see what it's like when they get theirs, because I know there's a lot of houses that are a lot more expensive than ours, okay? But I don't see any benefit. I mean, what can you do for us? You know, are you going to give us water? Are you going to give us gas? Are you going to fix our roads? Okay. You know, I just want water and gas. But then again, my home is not made for it. It wasn't built for it. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. I wish you wouldn't approve it. I have the best neighbors there. Okay. Where this other annexation that's on the east side of 36th Street, okay, that's a little bit different, but you got all these other homes up in our area, you know, and hopefully I'm speaking for a lot of people, especially, you know, my neighbor isn't here to be able to be here this evening, but Yeah, I totally disapprove of it. You know, I mean, you know, what I'm going to receive, what are my benefits? Tell me. What am I going to receive? Your fire and rescue, okay, that comes out of your insurance because we have to pay for a fire department, okay? I mean, whenever rescue squad's called, we pay for it out of our pocket, okay? You might supply the people to do it, but we pay for it, okay? You know, what else could I? Fire and rescue, we get our Sarpy County Sheriff, the sheriff's is there, you know, we get police, you know, we get police of the area. So tell me what you would do for us, you know, to make it feasible for me to accept something like this, to want to have this, just so you can get more money. Is that what it is? I mean, you know, I don't understand the $600. You know, I read it here. It's like MUD or whatever, you know. Sure, it might be for schools, you know. What? Tell me. What can you do? My road is a gravel road. Yes, it might not be the best gravel road. Every time we call the county, you know, they come down there. It might be a little bumpy. Hey, can you throw down some gravel? No problem. Okay, it's taken care of. And just like other people have stated, you know, our snow, you know, we get our snow plowed in a timely manner. You know, sure, Bellevue might have the finest, you know, that's fine and wonderful too, you know, but what can you do for us to want me to even stay there to pay your taxes? That's what I ask. You know?
I don't think this is a discussion about where you want to go with it. Everybody already receives some benefits from the city without paying for them. As you drive out of your neighborhood, you drive onto 36th Street, which is a city street. So, and the administration, like I said earlier, has determined that it is in the best interest of the city to bring all these areas outside the city into the city limits. It's part of the natural growth and development of a city such as Bellevue. I understand that a lot of people don't want to be annexed by the city. They kind of like to be out there on their own, but that's not the proper way for a city to grow and develop.
So basically, I have no choice of what you are saying there, correct? I mean, you can't bring us water, or excuse me, you can't bring us sewer without, you know, ungodly amounts of water, you know, funds for lines, and then also gas also, which that is part of being a city. You know, you get those amenities. Okay, you get water and gas. You know, I'm sure maybe all you people have water and gas or sewer, you know. I would love to have it, but, you know, to pay for it. So I just oppose of it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to come forward to speak in favor or against?
Hi, Bonnie Healy with Potter and George, plots 1, 2, and 3. My neighbors aren't able to be here, but I'm speaking on their behalf as well. We live directly off of 39th Street, which is the dirt road that connects up to Barrett. I have 3 questions, and then I have a comment. On that street there, the street has steadily been moving towards the east, away from the field, and towards the frontages of the houses. Every time it gets plowed, and even the street traffic people tend to always cut the curb really close. I've lost about 6 feet of my corner lot. I'm there on the corner. My question to you is, where would that road end up being compared to where it is right now? Because right now we're really bumpy, we're really muddy, we're still putting up with it. Usually we have you guys Sarpy comes through at least once a year and kind of grates it, so it's not quite as bad. We haven't had anything put on that street for at least 15 to 17 years. They did ground up tires, which worked out really, really well and held up really well. And that connected all the way down to Barrett is how far they did it. So my question is, do you know where that street would land if you guys are going to improve that street?
When you say where it would land, there is right of way there. It should be in the right of way. If the city's going to do an improvement, we would obviously look at where the right of way is and maintain it in the right of way.
We've been told that the street has moved and that there is a fire hydrant that actually would be in the middle of that road if it was moved back the way it's supposed to be. Do you know anything about that?
I don't.
Okay.
But I would like to say that the city is committed to maintaining these areas if and when they are annexed. So you'll be able to call the street department if you've got specific issues.
If you look at your diagram, even you can see how it's starting to curve in towards
you're on
the frontages
you're on the
of
corner
homes.
where right there.
Yes, and you can see how the road is starting to shift closer, and that corner is starting to shift closer towards the house, rather than using the square that it should be using. It should be farther down and over. So it's moved quite a bit. I've lived there since 1990, and I'm just concerned that they'll put the road back where it was supposed to be, away from the homes a little bit, rather than just use what everybody's been convenient and has made the least path of resistance, which is closer to our homes. My second question would be, when they do put that road through, back about 15 years ago, they had talked about putting water and sewage through that. When they do the road, they would put the water and sewage there. My home's here. My home is on well and septic. There's an empty lot before you get to my next neighbor, who I believe is on city water, but is on septic. So my question would be, would I have to pay for the frontage of the empty lot that is there to get to my home?
You're talking from Giles down to your house, to your property.
Right. There's
Who
an
owns-
empty
who o-
lot between
who
me
owns
and
it?
my neighbor does.
It'd be your neighbor's responsibility.
I was told that it would be my responsibility and that I would have to put a lien against my neighbors so that whenever they sold it, then I would recoup my money for going across their frontage. It's not their responsibility to put it down to my house.
If the city, well, maybe we're talking different things. If the city does a project where it's assessed against the property owners, it would be assessed against the property owner, which is your neighbor.
Okay.
If you do something that is kind of private on your own from Giles or the lots behind Giles or south side down to your home, then you would be, as a project on your own, you would be responsible for that cost. I believe MUD, especially with water, as a program where you could recoup costs when somebody else hooks up to that.
So that information was just if I were to bring it to my home without there being a road or anything or
Right.
any assessment against me. And there's no way that they would ever make me assess coming from the back of my lot. You can see I'm very deep. And I would never have to come from the back up if they did road improvement, right? That would be the frontage of your house.
Water is typically in the front.
Okay, good. I'm new.
And let me make one comment for everybody. The city is not in the water and gas business. It's MUD. So.
Yeah, okay. I just know that a lot of times when they do road improvements, they also put it through so they don't have to dig it up again a second time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. My next question is going to be about the septic tank. Don't cringe. I'm on 0.9 acreage. I was told that if anything ever went wrong with my septic tank, that I would not be able to replace it. I could repair it, but I would never be able to replace it because Sarpy and Bellevue now have a rule that says I need at least a minimum of 1 acre to put in a septic tank. Is that still correct?
My understanding was the half acre rule. Under state statutes, there's a half acre requirement. Again, like I said to somebody else, if you are able to repair it at this point, the city's not going to red tag your house saying you You can't.
I don't
you
have
can't
any
live-
problems with it, just for clarification. Thank goodness. Okay, so you think it's a half an acreage?
I believe so.
Okay. And that goes for replacement as well, if I needed to replace it.
If you are able to replace it on your property, yes.
Okay.
If the speaker wanted some additional clarification on this, they could give who a call in the city of Bellevue. Yeah, offline, out of the meeting.
That would be
Probably
okay.
our permits department as far as septic systems.
Okay, that would be good. So for this, I would also like to reiterate that the Sarpy County has been plowing our roads very efficiently. We are a bus line. We are one of the only two ways to get into Barrett Drive. And they've always plowed within like 8 o'clock in the morning, even with our bad snowstorms, which is good. It allows us to get to work on time. I also really don't want to go to city water or sewage because of the additional cost. I like the fact that I can control my water source and I can use a reverse osmosis and I can basically make sure I've got the best water I can rather than depending on chlorine, etc., that they put in to purify other water. And I guess I did forget my last question. The big field that is right across from our homes that live on 39th Street, is that currently in an annexation or is it in a future annexation that you guys are going to do?
It is not in the current annexation package. It is not in one of the other areas that we are, the other four areas that we're going to be doing next. It is not in one of those areas either.
Okay, so we're good for a while. Yes?
Oh.
What
We'll
was
see.
that?
I don't know. It's not planned right at the moment.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
And I will sign it.
Great, thanks. Again, is there anybody else? Okay. I'm not sure.
John Kemp, 3821 Barrett Drive again.
May I interrupt you for a second? Have you already
You know, when I was up here last time, I did not sign in by
have
mistake.
you already spoken on this particular item?
No, it's a different item.
Thank you.
The annexation.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Will you bring the map back up to Bonnie's house, please, at 39th Street? Okay, now follow straight north up to Giles. When that street is to be put in, if they're going to put it in, is it going to be straightened out and put where it's designated on that map? Because right now it jogs over at my son's house, and part of that is his lot, and that road is on his lot.
I will say that if the city were to improve that, it would be within the right of way. The city's not going to.
But it's been that way for years. Have they taken it over by eminent domain and said that it's ours now? That's what I want to know.
There's been no eminent domain action that I'm aware of.
You can see where the street
I
should
see
go
it.
right straight, but it jogs off to the west.
I see that, but like I said, if the city does a project with that, it will do it within the right of way.
Alrighty, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wanting to come forward to speak for or against?
My name's John Bittner. I live at 8405 South 36th Street.
If you would sign in, if you
What's
would
that?
sign in, please.
Yeah, we have horses on the property, and I didn't know with the annexation if any laws pertaining to livestock or horses would be changed, or about any building codes, because we do have outbuildings out back that are in need of repair and are planned. I just didn't know how that would go.
Nothing will change as far as that is concerned. Horses are regulated under the zoning ordinance. You're already under our zoning ordinance because you're in our jurisdiction. Same with the building code. You come to our building permits and inspections office now, you do that after annexation as well. So that there'd be no change as far as what the regulations are.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kevin Lubert, and I live at 3702 Murray Street. One of the most appealing parts about living at Barrett's was being told it's a military move. So I was told that Nebraska has really high real estate taxes. So I was like, okay, well, I'll look out for that, because obviously I'm venturing out into home ownership, and paying more than I have to towards real estate taxes can be frustrating. So my question is, right now with the county, it's 1.86% roughly for real estate taxes, if I'm correct. With this annexation, what is the current Bellevue real estate tax rate?
If I have these numbers correct, and I think I do, it'd be about a 2.3 levy.
Okay. With that being said, I didn't know the number off the top of my head, so spitballing it, I went with 2.49, 2.5, somewhere around that range, based on my current assessment. And obviously, given the 2.3%, with the annexation, that would impose roughly a $500 to $700 increase on me annually. I have a wife and 2 kids, and as you stated, sir, that the city doesn't have a lot of plans in motion yet to add the infrastructure to those facilities, or to the lots. And with that being said, I feel like the city should put plans into place to make sure that infrastructure is there if we're going to be taxed on what I'll backtrack here. This is my first time in a setting like this. I just got the letter, and I wanted to make sure that I had my voice heard. That the city should have infrastructure in place to receive the full benefits, since we'll be paying the full taxes, or the higher rate of taxes. And you even stated at the beginning of this that there would be no actual, not to say there's no benefit, because as you state, there are some city benefits that we receive. But if there's already been other folks that have been annexed and they haven't seen improvements as far as the sewer being put in and road improvements and things of that nature, would the city consider making sure that they have just a better plan? Because it kind of sounds to me right now that the only benefit is the city of Bellevue for getting $500 from just myself, and I know there's other folks in this room that probably have higher assessments, and they're going to pay more as well. So does the city have? Are they opposed, or is there any plan of action to say, hey, we can build an infrastructure first before we start putting these people, or putting the folks that are on the stated annexation area to basically we're paying higher taxes now, and we might be helping pay for that infrastructure later, which we still have to tie into, because it's again back to the septic concern. And I'll just end with that.
At this time, there are no firm infrastructure plans for the area.
Okay. And with that being said, I am opposed to the annexation of Area 3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else willing to come forward to speak either for or against for item 3D, Area 3?
Jack Jones, 8259 South 32nd Street. I own tax lot F and G, currently ag, and I am opposed to the annexation.
Do you have any other comments?
No, thank you.
Great, good. Thank you for signing in. Is there anybody else for or against?
Mike Sudlick, 3811 Virginia. And
Lanning, I see you couldn't just retire and ride off into the west.
No.
I say you got yourself in a worse position.
As you sign in, Mr. Sedlick, I will mention for the record that Mr. Sedlick and I had a working relationship 25 to 15 years ago, and we are no longer in the employee of the same company or have professionally or personally spoken with each other. So I see no.
We're both retired.
Yep, both retired.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to go over some things that just to make sure I understood them. You said there was $750,000 basically budgeted for road improvements?
It is not budgeted this time. That's what the street department, when reviewing the area, estimated the cost would be for road improvements.
So there's no timeline at this point to do anything?
No. His report indicated that the need would be done. The need would be in the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay. I live on Virginia Street, and I would call it maybe semi-improved. It's certainly not. It's not paved or anything. So there, at this point, there's no plans to pave that. I mean,
that's correct.
750, was that part of it? Paving on that?
I don't know the extent of his. He writes, extensive rehab and resurfacing needs, reconstruction of all residential asphalt streets, costs could approach and exceed $750,000 and will be necessary within the first 3 to 5 years after annexation.
Okay, but you did say that all of that would be paid for by our taxes, and the city would pay for it.
Typically, yes, that's the way it's done. When it's budgeted as part of the capital improvement plan and
so
the city budget.
So there's no allotting it by footage and all that. There's no.
That is not typically the way it is done.
Keep saying typically. Is there some?
Well, I can't speak to what the council might do in the future.
Well, okay.
But road improvements such as this.
At this time, that's the way it's done.
Right.
Oh, okay. That's fair. And as far as if they were to put a sewer line in on Virginia for whatever, I'm not sure why they would, but because I've got plenty of room to put in laterals, would I have to pay for that or hook up to it, or would there be any really need to? Because there's really nobody else at this point on that.
If the city did the project and formed an assessment district, your property would be assessed
for that,
like everybody else's. And at that point, if your septic is still working, there would not be a requirement to hook up to it. At some point in the future, there may be, but just because the sewer's there, if you've got a working septic, we would not require it until there was an issue with your septic.
If they were to put a sewer line down 39th from Giles to Virginia, I'm just curious, and you said that would be allotted by frontage. Do the landowner on the west side pay for part of that? Because I don't see where they're being annexed.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. I guess just a general comment. It doesn't affect me, but obviously you're not going to tell us all the good things you're going to do for us. We've been told we're kind of sucking off the city as it is, but I guess I really see, it's not mine, but these people with all this agricultural land to the east side of 36th, that's bad. And there's absolutely nothing they're going to gain. And they got a lot of property there, so I'm sure their taxes are plenty high enough. And I just can't see how the city can go out and start annexing agricultural land. I mean, why don't you take the stuff west of 39th? Right now, part of this. I mean, what is the reason that isn't being part of it?
Well, that area is pretty much completely vacant.
Well, I don't know. I don't think there's very many homes on the far side there. Like gentleman here has some property. Just a comment. I really think that's a money grab. So, I mean, I'm opposed to the whole thing. Put me down as opposed, but just looking at this thing from a holistic standpoint, that's pretty poor. That's poor on the city's part. I mean, if you're gonna take that, you gotta take the other. You know, I know you guys want more money. Everybody wants more money, but you gotta provide something for it.
Great, thank you. Is there anybody else?
Alan Doty, I have not spoken on this subject again, 8613 South 39th Street.
Thank you.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
I just want to go on the record saying that I'm against the annexation. I do appreciate all the comments. I want to thank the military gentleman for his service and how he articulated. I just want to go on the record to say that it sounds like and seems like the city doesn't really have a plan, except maybe for the city and their benefit of taxation and maybe some income, but not really concerned about the citizens. So I'm against the annexation.
Great. Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else coming forward to speak either for or against?
You want me to sign in?
Please. And if you would, just mention your name for the record.
I will do that.
And you're here on a personal basis.
No. My name is Kathy Welch. I am a city council member for Ward 4, and a lot of these residents, once they are annexed, would be moved into my ward. I know there's concerns that you have with regards to the city coming in and you're thinking it's just for your tax dollars. And it truly is not for the tax dollars. I was elected to this city council just recently, and I'm very proud to be able to serve on this council. And anytime I've had a constituent that has called me on anything, I've been able to get some things done for that particular constituent, whether it's making a phone call or getting them answers or those types of things. Mr. Shuchek, one of the ladies that I was talking to asked, she's on a well system. If she is annexed, do they require her to hook up to city water if city water is available? That's or that would be up to MUD, correct? That whether the water is available.
The way I understand it, you can have a well. You can have a well at your house. It's not a requirement to hook up to public water anywhere.
Okay, perfect.
You just have to have potable water.
Okay. And then I know for myself, my previous house was over off of 39th and Suburban, and we were on septic system at that point. This is 20 years ago or so. And we paid to have the public sewer come through because there was quite a few septic systems that were failing. And I know that the city's not going to want to come in and, at least this would be my opinion, they wouldn't come in and just put the sewer system in just to be putting it in. It's going to be when there's a failure and can't be, and another failure and another failure, and then it's going to be, let's put this in, and then as they fail, then they're given the opportunity to connect. And typically it's the plumber or the contractor that comes in to connect the house at the least amount of distance from the house to that system, so it's the least amount of cost. Correct?
The line in the street has stub outs to it, and it's constructed that way. When the house has sewer installed to it, that's when you connect from the house to that stub in the street, and that's what your private plumber guy would be doing.
Okay, perfect. And again, I just want to say to the citizens that are here that if this gets presented to the city council and it gets moving forward, I may be your city council person. Please call me, reach out to me. I'm happy to help any way I can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to come forward, either for or against? Seeing nobody coming forward, I will close the public hearing. I appreciate all the comments we've had on this item. It's a little irregular, but if you're not aware of this, we are live over the cable TV systems. Having said that, if you want to stand up very quickly, take a quick stretch, because I'm going to, and sit back down.
Let's take care of this.
And we'll get to the commissioners' discussion. I have got to stretch my back. And this is about as quick as I'm talking about, so. Okay. Commissioners, your wishes. Discussion.
Question for staff. It seems like the last time we had an annexation package, it's been 10 or so years, but it was down by Offutt Air Force Base, and there are a number of ag properties there that ultimately the annexation package, I think, was removed with respect to the ag portions. I guess in terms of the lots that are on the east side of 36th Street, are any of those 20 acres plus where they're getting the greenbelt treatment? I think it was the greenbelt that we were trying to prevent disturbing at that time.
Yes. I believe some of those are getting greenbelt.
And if they get annexed into the city, they lose the ability to take greenbelt, don't they?
That is correct.
Yeah.
I did specifically address that with the administration, and the thought is that these are basically suburban properties. They're not really rural, and they should be in the city.
Do you know which tax lots those would be specifically? I'm gonna guess tax lot 5 in the middle there looks like one of the larger ones off of the east side of 36th Street.
I don't know specifically at this point, and it's hard to see those numbers. I believe the property that Mr. Jones has, and he also owns some that it's going to be in Area 4 as well. So we're probably back up here. At Greenbelt.
I guess my thinking on and again, I know annexation is controversial and you can agree or disagree with what services you already receive from the city, but obviously you're driving on city streets and the city does not get the benefit of the tax dollars for that. But where I do find some sympathy on this particular application, and it's the same as we had 10 years or so ago when we were down off of Base Lake Road, if we're going to be disturbing ag land that's 20 acres or more that would take the green belt away, that's where my preference would be to remove those from the annexation, which if we could figure that out in terms of which properties those would be, I'd appreciate that. I don't know if you or Tammy have the ability to, or if people in the audience here tonight that are on the east side of 36th Street, if you could identify if your lot is more than 20 acres and currently subject to greenbelt. Come on up, please, if you would, and we'll try to pull up the map to figure out which tax parcel you are.
We're in Area 6.
Okay, so
Do you
I'm
wanna
sorry.
wait till Area 6?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, thanks, yep. This is only for Area 3.
Can you state my name again, or?
Yeah, if you would, just your name, don't.
Jackson
sign
Tracy
anything.
Jones, 8259 South 32nd Street.
Okay.
And we have lots F and G, right this, can I go over there?
Tax lot F is the top, tax lot G is the bottom.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the next property, all total together, we have 38 acres. And we bale hay.
So
And
the property to the left of that is that tax lot
That is tax lot
5, maybe?
F and G, and then we have
Q, and T.
lot 26, lot 25, lot QT and T2, and lot 24A. So,
Those are to the north of.
yeah,
of
those
these
are in,
two.
some of those are in Area 4.
Okay,
But
so
we
for
raise sheep, we have horses, we raise pigs seasonally.
So for this particular annexation package, just that eastern lot, which is tax lots F and G?
And no, it'll be Q and T too on the backside.
Those two particular properties have no homes, or they're just pasture land, and we bale hay off of them.
And currently you're in the greenbelt status?
Yes, I fill out the paperwork.
So again, I'm gonna apologize, just so I'm clear, it's those two lots.
Yep, and then over
And then
the
the
hill,
one to
there's
the
another
left.
It's not to the left.
In Area 3, it's just those two.
Just those two in Area 3, got
Yes,
it.
in Area 3, yeah.
Okay. How about the lot to the left of that, Ms. Palm? Is that one over 20 acres, or is the owner of that lot here this evening?
That's a 10-acre lot.
That's a 10
He's in the green belt too. That's John Knapp.
Is he also a green belt because he's got land in annexation area north of there?
I put up his hay, I don't,
And he has trees and fruit trees
yes.
that he,
Would he have a green belt with less than 20 anymore? Would that be grandfathered in? from when we used to have 10 acres for ag?
None of these are zoned ag.
What's that?
Well, if
He's
they're in the
getting
county and
green
he's getting greenbelt, they must be,
I think it's just the use as opposed to the zoning.
Can you contact him and discuss that with him?
how about, Tammy, if you go to the next lot to the left, one more over that adjoins 36th Street, what is that lot? Is
That's
the
less
owner-
than 10 acres. It's 9.46 acres.
There's 2A and 2B there are those two lots.
Okay.
And
Anyone else here in the audience this evening have what you think is greenbelt property besides the folks? Are you in this annexation area?
No.
Okay, we get,
Whatever, if I was 6 or whatever.
we'll hold off on that then yet. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioners, any other comments or questions at this point?
Yes, I think I would like to make a few comments. I really appreciate having so many people come out to speak to this annexation process, but I think something that needs to be done, our job is to say we recommend approval or disapproval, and then it moves on to the city council. And as Ms. Welch said, she would be your council member if you were annexed. So no matter what our position is, if it's approved, it would go to city council, and you need to make your comments to the city council. We are not elected officials, and so we don't have the authority to talk, to really say your taxes would be thus and so, your streets will be repaired by the street department. You need to contact the departments in the city or go to the city council meeting, and I'm sure that they would have people there who would speak to your concerns. They're very, very legitimate concerns. But again, I agree with Mr. Ackley. I wish we could do something about the greenbelt designation.
Thank you. Any other comments, commissioners, questions? Mr. Arning?
Just a question for staff. If we do something with a green belt, just talk about what that does, big picture for the community, where you start to chunk out these areas where you're keeping these 20 acres and 25 acres and 40 acres in the middle of what would be city limits that are not getting city services. Just from a big picture, comprehensive planning, just kind of explain that to us.
you'll have islands or donut holes in the city. It creates problems for law enforcement, who to dispatch to an area if there's a law enforcement issue. There are certain things that you can do in the city limits or can't do in the city limits that you can do in the county. For example, one of the issues up, and it gets more to Area 4, some people discharging firearms. You cannot do that in the city, but there was a matter of it, I'll say closer to Chandler Road, somebody outside the city limits, and the county doesn't have a restriction on that. So you'd have areas with different rules, just like I said, donut holes or islands out there.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Jacobson. There is another comment I wanted to make. Mr. Sidlak talked about the fact that the city is not, I'm not going to find it right in my notes now, but is not ready to annex it, doesn't have a plan. The city can't have a plan on what to do for you without you being a part of the city. I just want to make sure you understand that.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion. In order to move things forward, I will make a motion.
Well, hang on a minute, if you would, Mr. Jacobson. Mr. Shuchak, again on that parcel, not the farthest east off of 36th Street, but the one next to it. Tammy, I don't know if you can go back to that. I can't make out what the tax lot
I believe
number
that's
is.
tax lot 1.
The one next to it?
No,
Sorry.
between those two.
That's tax lot 1. And is there a way we can confirm if that's Greenbelt or not Greenbelt currently, even though it's only 10 acres? Would that show up on the additional details there on the assessor side or not?
It does look like they do have assessments for different types of farm soils on their assessment online.
Which would be an indication of the
Yes.
Greenbelt?
I believe so.
Okay. Unless there's any further discussion, I'd be prepared to make a motion. I would recommend approval of annexation area 3 with the exception of tax lot 1, tax lot F, and tax lot G due to those being Greenbelt status. As for the rest of the lots, I would make the recommendation based upon the good of the city and in accordance with the comprehensive plan.
Mr. Ackley, would you clarify those three again, those three areas?
It would be the 2 lots that are shown there. It's all taxed as one parcel apparently, but it's tax lot F to the north and tax lot G to the south, and then to the left of that is tax lot 1, removing those because they're currently getting Greenbelt status, which when they're used for ag land, they get a discounted mill levy. And if we're bringing them in and it continues to be used for ag, again, it's a hardship on farm. We did the same thing with annexations down off of Base Lake Road about 10 years ago. We excluded anything that was in Greenbelt again, at that time as a philosophy. Obviously, it's up to the commission and the council as to what the philosophy is now, but that would be my recommendation.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner King. No discussions on the motion itself. Commissioners, please vote.
Vote is 6-2. Motion carried.
This recommendation will go to the City Council on April 22nd. 6-2. Did it show up?
6-2 with Mr. Ernie and Ms. Cutsforth voting no.
Our next item on the agenda is item 3E, that is annexation area 4. That is a request to annex lots 1 through 7, Edward Warren Addition lots 1 and 2, Denny's subdivision lots 1, 2, and 3, Norton's First Edition lots 1 and 2, Cornelison Addition lots 1 through 5, Pleasant Value lots 1, J&J Addition lots 1, Gore's Additions lot 1 through 24, and Vacated Alley block 2, Pennington Heights lot 1, Ambrose Addition lot 2, Lucy Acres lot 2, Lucy's Acres replat, lot 17A, 18A, 18B1A, 18B2, 19B, 19C, 19D, 20A2, 20A3, 20A4, 20B4, 20B3, 20B4, 20B5, 20E, 20F2, 21 except 30 feet north half of lots 22, 24A, 25, 26, 27, north lot 15 feet of lot 28, south 75 feet of the south half, lot 28, 31A west of Railroad, Pleasant Hill, or Martin subdivision lots 31CA and 31D, Pleasant Hill replat, lots H2, J1, J2, K1, K2, L1, L2, MN, O1, O2, P1, P2, Q1, Q2, R1, R2, R3, T1, T2, U, V1, B1, north 65 feet of tax lots I-2 and south 75 feet of tax lot I2, south 16 township, 14 north, range 13 east of the 6th prime meridian, all abutting the county right away. Applicant, City of Bellevue. Again, if you need to move outside into the hallway to discuss our past items, please do so. And if the last person out would happen to swing the door shut, if you would, then you can have your discussion out there and we can continue ours in here. Thank you. Okay, I will open the hearing to any public input, either for or against at this time. This is item 3E, annexation area number 4.
Rebecca Berg, 8105 South 36th Street. You've answered most of the questions that I had written down from the previous complainants. I do have one final question that I have addressed with the city of Bellevue previously, and they have been very reluctant to enforce their own ordinances. If this annexation is approved, there is a culvert that runs under 36th Street that drains approximately 15 acres of stormwater from the development that is northwest of us, from Green Street and 36th Street, west and north. We've had a hydrologist that has come through. That water drains through 6 properties on the east side of 36th Street. We're in the middle. There's 2 properties to the north of us. There's 2 properties to the south of us that are affected by this water. The water comes from Bellevue. There are storm grates in every property on the west side of 36th Street. There are storm grates that drain all of the storm water that comes from that area. It drains under 36th Street, dumps out on the east side of 36th Street, and drains across all of our properties. I want to know if that is going to be addressed in an annexation.
Could we pull up or have her identified? Do we have a pointer for her to show where we're talking about?
Go over to 36th Street, across the street from Green Avenue and the church there.
So this is much farther south in the St. John Cemetery category.
Down a little bit more. Can you zoom in? She is the second of those the 2 long skinny lots there.
Thank you. Okay.
So what is that across the street? Is that the
church, isn't it?
Okay, here. This is our property right here. The culvert is up here. It comes, there's storm grates in all of the properties across here. All the storm water comes from this area right here. There's approximately 15 acres according to the hydrologist that we hired. It comes across a culvert. It dumps into right here, runs along 36th Street, and then comes across all of our properties. You can see where the water comes through. Where's my deal here? It comes down through here, down across here. This is our property here, across this property, and then there's a huge watershed right here that's approximately 30 feet deep. And the majority of that water comes from Bellevue. Now, we've been informed by the city that, well, it's not up to us to maintain it. We don't want them to maintain it. We want them to stop diverting Bellevue stormwater onto county property, which is what they're doing right now.
Do you have any other comments or no?
Well, if that's not going to be addressed, then I'm opposed to annexation.
I did speak to Public Works about this. I got an email from Ms. Berg. Their comment was that it's the natural flow of water that's coming down, and it comes across their property naturally. So being downhill, you take the water that's coming from it to you. I know that my initial email to Public Works got forwarded to somebody, I think, I believe in a street department, to maybe look at that further. But again, the initial comment was that it's water coming downhill. It's going to go where it goes naturally.
I understand that it flows downhill, but the majority of the water comes from Bellevue, from west of 36th Street, from all the properties that have storm grates in their yards, and that water is diverted under 36th Street with a 36-inch culvert that dumps onto the county, that then comes across our property. I understand the physics of how water flows, but my complaint is that it's stormwater from the city of Bellevue that is being diverted onto county property. Okay?
Okay.
Can I comment?
Yeah.
Just one comment, I guess. So if this property is annexed, it would no longer be Bellevue dumping onto the county. You would have one representation. It would be no longer having to talk to the city and having to talk to the county. Mrs. Welch would be your one person to talk to.
Right.
So that may help solve some of that. You don't have to deal with the county engineers and city engineers and all of that. You'd have one representation.
Oh, yes, we've been ping pong back and forth.
Right. That would go away with this annexation. That's another reason why annexations can help in these situations, is it's no longer this donut like he was talking about, where you have a spot in the middle that whose responsibility is it?
Okay. I do have one additional question. If this is approved and the city council approves, when does it go into effect?
The annexation, unless they put a specific date in the ordinance, is effective 15 days after the ordinance passes, which would be I'd say early to mid-May. Just looking at the current schedule.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wants to come forward either for or against this item? And your name?
Jack Jones, 8259 South 32nd Street.
You already signed in.
And I'm Tracy Jones. I should probably sign in.
We own tax lot Q2 and T2 that are currently zoned ag and are on the green belt. And we put hay up on them too. And we're opposed to an annexation.
There's also
Tax lots 25 and 26.
that we also bale hay off of and graze livestock on. And then we also bale hay from lot 27. Let's see, I can't really tell. So, yes, that
Yes.
one, and then the next two, we bale their hay, and actually the next lot, that little chunk right there, we bale that hay there as well. And so, I don't know if that makes a difference. We also graze livestock on lot 1, which is down, let's see, this thing doesn't work, does it? It's to the east. Let's see, does this work? How's this go? There it goes. Oh, it doesn't work. So it's right here, this property right here. Right, yep, right where your little arrow is. Yep, that curved chunk right there, we graze livestock on that property as well.
So, with apologies, walk me through from your tax lot F, which was in the previous annexation area. Above
F.
that is tax lot 25. That's
Yep.
owned by you.
Yes.
And is Greenbelt.
Yes,
And next to that is 24A. Is that yours to the other side of it?
yes.
And
That's our home
also
place.
that's also Greenbelt.
Yes, we raise livestock and raise critters.
Okay, tax lot 1 to the right of that, not owned by you.
That is not owned by us,
Yes,
but we
no.
have livestock that graze that property.
Is that, how many acres is that, Tammy? I can't tell from here what you got pulled up.
That one doesn't show the special valuation for,
Looks like a smaller lot by itself.
I just wanted to share that we do a lot of farming down there.
Right.
Yes.
So above tax lots 25 and 24A that you own 26 above that?
Yes.
And that's also Greenbelt?
Yes.
27 above that?
That's not our property, but we bale hay off of there.
Can we tell what that's zone, Mr. Shuchak, if we go into the details?
the zoning for all of them is RS72.
Sorry, the Greenbelt.
Including the property that we own is also R72?
Yes.
Even though it's been ag since 1920?
The zoning is RS72, yes.
So, what does that mean?
It's a single-family residential zoning district.
So it's not agriculture?
The use may be agriculture, but the zoning is just a single-family residential district.
So does that mean different laws or rules apply to that property versus agriculture?
You would be grandfathered in as far as what you're doing. You've always, you've had a long time of agricultural use on that property. So that would be grandfathered. Just if somebody came in with an RS72 property, they could not start raising livestock on it. But since you've had...
So if it changed hands?
Doesn't matter.
So, but if it stays in the family because of the grandfathered rights?
The ownership doesn't matter, it's the use of the land.
Okay.
So as long as somebody you sold it to continued using the land for that type of thing, they can continue on.
Okay, I understand, okay.
So, Ms. Palm, is that 28?
So those two little sections, yes. 27, yeah. Yeah, 27, and then there's two little, like, they look.
So hang on, I'm going to apologize here. So on number 28, what is that? Is that currently Greenbelt or is that?
So we bale hay off of that property.
Understood. How about from a taxing standpoint, Chris, what do you see in there on the
I'm
detail?
I don't see the separate.
Are we on the little sliver that's shown there, which is actually 26 or 27, or are we on 28 that you're looking at screen-wise?
That's, I believe, is the south 75 feet of the south half of lot 28.
That's fine. Pardon me.
So let's go to the one just below that, the larger one. Is that one Greenbelt? And I believe that's 28 is what I'm showing here on my map.
That's the south half of lot 27, the south 75 feet of the north half of lot 27.
Click on the one below that if you would. For some reason I'm not. What is that lot you've got? Is that 20?
That's 26.
26.
These lots are approximately 5-acre parcels or less.
But it's attached to the other.
26 has Greenbelt.
All right, so starting down below, 25 has Greenbelt, 26 above it has Greenbelt, 27?
I mean, and this is Gustafson's property.
Mm-hmm. She's here.
I mean,
My brother owns 28.
I don't see that with the valuation of the special valuation of the land.
And what parcel is that, Chris?
The third one up from the bottom
Yep.
is the south half of lot 27 and the south 75 feet of the north half of lot 27.
Okay, so no Greenbelt there. And the one above it then is marked 27 on the maps here we've got, but it must be the north
It's the
portion.
north half of lot 27.
Okay, probably
Except
no.
south 75 feet.
Probably doesn't have the Greenbelt treatment there either.
Probably not.
And then the property to the west we own from them lots. We
Yes.
own,
Those are lots QT and T2.
yeah, behind their property.
They're the ones that the lady
Yes.
was saying that the water drains in. That leaves ruts in our property.
Okay, hang
We
on.
just
So
don't-
those two together are tax lot Q2.
Q2.
Q2 and T2.
T2's down below, so we really got 3 parcels here altogether and 1 on that shot. If I'm comparing it to this map we've got. Tax lot T2, tax lot Q2. It actually shows up twice, Q2 on the map here. And is that greenbelt treatment?
Yes.
That you're seeing on the system?
Yes.
How about the one below that, tax lot? Looks like IJ or...
That's you.
What do we got there for tax treatment?
It doesn't show a special valuation on it.
Okay. All right.
And then the next one over is Greenbelt. I mean, down. That one's Greenbelt.
And we discussed that one earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was in the previous annexation package, right?
Yes.
Tax lot 1, got it. Thank you.
And then I wanted to talk about, you guys said there's $750,000 for roads. How much does a mile of road cost on the average?
This was a street department's estimate for repairing and doing some reconstruction. If you're out there buying, completely building a new road, you're talking. I don't know. He
Yes.
went out and evaluated. He knows what he's looking at.
Resurfacing.
A new road, you're talking more than $1 million a mile.
No, I mean
But
like
you're not.
resurfacing.
I don't know the number.
Like asphalt, over the top.
I don't know that number, but like I said, our street superintendent who goes out there, evaluates, looks at the road, says, we're going to need to do this, this, and this, and he knows what things cost, and he came up with that dollar amount for that project.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wanting to come forward at this time?
Greg Sorensen, 7725 South 36th Street. And I'm opposed to the annexation. I know there's probably not a lot I can do to stop it. I know everybody wants to move forward with this. Built my house about 5-6 years ago, maybe, roughly. Was thinking about building a garage this year. I can see that's not going to be in the works. As soon as we can find out what those levies, I guess, are going to be and how soon they'll be implemented, I guess that would be great. It's not my wish to relocate. I know like I said, progress has got to roll, but when you have an acreage and that acreage has been that way for years and years and years and years, you're just not ready for change. So, but yeah, you guys could really look at that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
My name is Matt Ramsey.
And
thank you for your patience. I struggle with talking and writing at the same time. A little different question this evening. It seems the vast majority of these areas that are under consideration this evening have large swaths of land that are unimproved, undeveloped. As you stated, Area 4 here even though the land use is currently agricultural, a lot of the land itself is zoned for single-family residential. In Sarpy County, the primary driver for new development has been the SID device, Sanitation and Improvement District. Typically, there's such a large cost associated with putting in the infrastructure, which a lot of these people have concerns having to put in retrospect, that in Nebraska, a lot of cities have decided that the SID methodology is more effective to where they can have independent financing come in to develop these projects. Eventually, after this project's done, after a certain amount of time, the debt associated with that development has been paid down by the SID, and at that point it becomes prime candidate for annexation by the city, which my understanding of the legislation is the goal. Now, if we were to annex all of these undeveloped areas, they would be under Bellevue City's jurisdiction, and they would no longer be eligible for SID development. Is that correct?
You cannot form a SID within the city limits. So you are correct.
Okay. So once all these lands are within the city of Bellevue itself, a lot of this action that you're taking is going to freeze this land in its current state. I don't think, to my knowledge, Bellevue hasn't undertaken housing residential projects over the last 10 years. Can you state any?
What's your question?
Has the city of Bellevue proper developed any new residential areas, put in streets, sewers, go through the process of building houses?
They are all pretty much done in the SIDs.
Okay, so the Planning Commission here, I've reviewed the documents from a legislative standing. I see no issues whatsoever with these annexations. However, if you go forward and you annex all these undeveloped lands, whether it be agricultural, floodplain, basically you will be locking them in their current use. I do not see, a developer coming through and, without the substructure, the sewer, the roads and such being provided by the city, they have no way of installing these and recouping these costs. And so what you're proposing tonight is to take large swaths of areas outside of the city, locking them in their current state, and basically making them unavailable for future development. Understandably, the city of Bellevue could choose to develop these, but last fall the Planning Commission had to go to the Board of Bellevue, the City Council, and ask for funds to continue developing a commercial tract south of Offutt, and it's been a huge struggle. I don't see Bellevue coming up with funds for any type of development of these areas once they're inside the city limits.
One comment, Mr. Ramsey, if I may.
Yes.
We've previously had areas that were annexed into Bellevue, and then if a developer were to come in and do a new development, they've been de-annexed. The one time I can remember that was off of 25th and Chandler, the Kennedy Town Center. Again, that's more commercial. Part of it got broken off for housing. In this case, when you look at South 36th Street and the number of individual lots, again, most of the SIDs that we see come in, they're bringing in 40, 60, 80 acres or more at a time because they can bring in a complete layout of 60 to sometimes 300 plus homes. If a developer were able to buy up various properties within this area, that would make sense for him or her to do an SID. I don't think the action we're taking here tonight is going to be prohibitive of that. I think what's most prohibitive is the fact that there are so many owners of so many different lots. It'll just be hard for a developer to ever be able to get enough contiguous parcels put together to make an SID feasible. But could it be done? Absolutely. Yeah, but they would have to go through a de-annexation process at that point.
And you have one example of that happening, is that correct?
We've got one example of that in my memory, yeah. Again, the biggest issue is the fact that they'd have to deal with however many tax lots and owners we've got here. Most of the SIDs you see, they're buying farmsteads. They're dealing with one owner, maybe two.
Agreed, but there are large swaths of single-family residentials that current use is agricultural. You know, with if I was farming and I had to pay the city of Bellevue taxes on my land that is, you know, for all intents and purposes agricultural, you know, it's going to be I see this as a money loser for a lot of people. I appreciate your efforts on the green belt, but I guess my final recommendation here is that when you do go to the Bellevue City Council with your final recommendations, I would like for you to include an analysis of any undeveloped, unimproved lands within these regions with your express opinion of, you know, it's a floodplain, it can't be developed. It's got a steep grade, it cannot be developed. It's farmland. You know, we don't see it being developed. We don't care if it's developed. If somebody wants to develop, they can approach us to have that particular land unannexed. But, you know, I just don't see these lands as being developed in the future under with them being under the city of Bellevue. With that, I would like to say thank you for allowing us to speak this evening.
Thank you.
Would you state your address again?
It's 822 Bordeaux.
Thank you. Is there anybody else coming forward?
One final thing, I'm not within any of these annexed areas here, so thank you.
My name is Clara Gustafson. I live at 8110 South 32nd Street, and I'm against the annexation. We've had that property in our possession since 1920, and there's no amenities other than the tax, raising our taxes. And as far as the amenities for Bellevue is driving on their streets, I drive in streets of Omaha too, but Omaha doesn't charge me an extra $500-600 a year for taxes to drive on their streets. And that's the only amenity I can see that you guys are, I mean, there's no amenities, but the only thing that you're gonna do is raise my taxes, and I don't have anything else. So, but I'm against it. My brother lives at 8008 South 32nd, and he's medically not available to come, and he's against it also. So, and he lives on lot 28, I believe. I think it's 28. That's all I have to say.
Great, thank you. While you finish signing in, I'll ask if there's anybody else that wants to step forward to speak in favor or against. Thanks again. Your name and address for the record.
My name is Sonia Hernandez. My husband is Anthony Hernandez Jr. He is not here tonight. We own 7717 and 7721 South 36th Street. And my main purpose for coming tonight was to find out our benefits for the annexation, and I haven't heard them. So I would have to say we would be against our taxes going up for those two properties. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there anybody else on item 3E, annexation area 4? Seeing nobody coming forward to speak in favor or against, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, your wishes? Commissioner Arney.
Can I ask a question of staff? Just, there's a 20-acre parcel that's east of both annexation 3 and 4 that was not considered tonight. I'm just thinking, was there a reason why administration did not bring that? There's several parcels there. 2803 Childs Road is the owner.
Yes.
Just curious as to why we're leaving that donut in the middle of this whole thing.
This was an item that was before the Planning Commission before you started. Mr. Ramirez, who owns that, and the actual lot the house is on next to it, came through. He had requested annexation for that piece of property because he was going to combine it with another lot that was already in the city. He ended up withdrawing his request to annex before the city council when he found out. He finally talked to the assessor's office, and he was going to lose his green belt, and again, and then he would have been also taxed the city rate. So he withdrew his request to annex that property. When we started this, and the council did not, so the council did not annex that property. When we had started these areas, his annexation request was in process, so it was not, we didn't add it in at that time. I've been directed to go ahead and, with the next round, bring it forward so that you will see it next time. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments?
Unless there's any further discussion, I'd be prepared to make a motion. Seeing none. I would move to annex the areas represented here in annexation area 4 with the exception of tax lots 24A, tax lot 25, 26, tax lot T2, and tax lot Q2, excluding those 5 for the reason of the greenbelt protection. All others I would recommend annexation based upon consistency with the comprehensive plan for the city.
Second.
Comment. Those aren't tax lots. Well, Q2 and T2 are tax lots. 24A, 25, and 26 are in Pleasant Hill or Martin subdivision.
Well, you tell me what I've got here then.
No, those are you're signifying the right ones, but you said tax lots, 24A, 25, 26. Those aren't tax lots.
Okay.
They've actually platted a long time ago.
So what do we need to call them to make sure they're excluded?
Just as long as you clarify that 24A, 25, and 26 are not tax lots, they are
actual lots.
Pleasant Hill or Martin subdivision.
Got it. So the exclusion would be 24A, 25, and 26 of Martin Hill subdivision, and tax lot 2 and tax lot Q2.
Commissioner King?
Second.
Second. Great. We have a motion and a second. Commissioners?
Yeah, I opposed the amendment last time. I'm not a fan of the donut zoning that we're doing with the greenbelt status. I understand why we're doing it, but I don't think it's overall good for the comprehensive planning of the city. So I will probably oppose the amendment this time also.
I respect that, Mr. Arn.
Are you suggesting a amendment to his at this time, or?
We have a second. I don't know how that works, Chris. You'd have to explain that to us.
Say, let's vote on this motion, and if it passes, then there wouldn't be an amendment unless this failed.
Okay. So we'll take a vote.
Just a point of clarification. We have verified all those really are.
They are receiving a reduced valuation for the land.
Okay.
Vote is 6-2. Motion carries.
Motion carried. This will go to our recommendation will go to the City Council on April 22nd. Our next public hearing is 3E, Annexation Area 4. Oh, I'm off.
The next one.
Thanks. 3F. 3F, thank you. Item 3F, Annex Area 6. Request to annex tax lots 2A, 3B, 4E, and 4F, Section 27, Township 14, North Range 13 East on 6th Prime Meridian, Tax Lot C, and part of the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter, east of Cedar Island Road and north of Cornhusker Road, Section 28, Township 14 North, Range 13 east of the 6th prime meridian, all abutting county road rights of way, applicant City of Bellevue. Again, I open the public hearing for item area 6. If there's anybody wanting to speak in favor or against, please sign in, state your name.
Hi, my name is Susie Plembeck, and I live at 2430 Glacier Drive, and representing our family who owns the property at 25th and Cornhusker Road, tax lot C 281413. Similar to some of the other stories that you've heard tonight, this property has been in our family. It was originally in our family before the Depression. Our great-grandparents lost it in the Depression, and our grandmother saved and bought the farm back. This farm has been, it's been used for agricultural purposes this whole time. It's 20.94 acres, and corn and soybeans are farmed on the property in alternating years. We oppose the annexation in one part because we would lose the greenbelt status, and our tax rate would at least double in the entire tax. It's not that the city tax would merely be added, but because of the valuation changes, the entire tax rate would double.
We're trying to align the map up to what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. It looks as one lot on the map, but we actually have neighbors to the west of us that it backs up to.
Do you own the lot that's highlighted there as well? Or just the one over at Cedar Island?
The one that's highlighted, right?
The one that's highlighted, yes.
And you don't own the lot next to Cedar Island Road?
Not the one to the west, no.
Okay.
Before you continue, just a second, we'll let Commissioner Askley sit down and resolve his map reading skills.
I'm still trying to figure out which one that is.
So
okay,
it's cat-a-corner to like that Cornhusker car wash on the corner of 25th and Cornhusker. And then there's a Sears directly across 25th Street from it.
Got it.
So it's a disservice to us for the taxes, but that's nothing new that you haven't heard tonight. But however, as the other gentleman stated, we do believe that this would be deleterious to the city as well because of the development prospect. We intend to farm it for now. We intend to keep it as agricultural. However, what drives development obviously is land value, and when the developers are demanding land and are seeking this property, then the value will go up when we have multiple competitors, and that's not the situation with this land right now. So the valuation as it is, if it's annexed, would be less attractive to developers, and therefore would not incentivize, it doesn't incentivize the city, or it doesn't, the developers aren't incentivized to develop in the city, and the owners aren't incentivized to sell. So it's not mutually beneficial for either. My brother-in-law resides on the property, as does my mother-in-law. He's back there, but he doesn't want to come up. So we oppose this annexation, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to come forward at this time, either for or against?
My name is Randy Clemick.
Hey.
I'm part owner of the property.
Chris?
And I just reiterate what she said. You know, we've been there for over 100 years, and you know, being annexed would raise its taxes. That essentially force us to sell the property. It is greenbelt status currently. And again, I don't see any, down the road, I think it's going to, if we get annexed, it's going to prohibit us for serial limit and sort of make it more difficult to sell, since it wouldn't be able to be put into a SID. As a previous gentleman, I know they had smaller, you mentioned they had smaller lots, you have to get bigger lots together, but here we have a large area, so that it could be something a SID would come into, or be, I'm not sure how you describe it, but a developer could put it into a SID to develop it, whereas, if it's inside the city, you'd have to go through the process of de-annexing it. I'm not sure how involved that process is, but I don't see any benefit to getting annexed now versus down the road, other than losing greenbelt status and taxes going up, and I don't know that we'd be able to still live there. So essentially be forcing us out of our homes. That's all I have to say.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
I appreciate you for taking the decency to look at the greenbelt status. I think.
Thanks. Is there anybody else that would like to come forward and speak either for or against? And although I've said it many times, sign in and say your name.
David Meisinger, and referring to the property on 2721 Meisinger Road.
It's the one right next to it, Tammy.
And it also is in the green belt. And I don't know, as you stated earlier, I think you did there, Mr. Thomas, that it was, what was it, 20 some acres?
Correct.
There was a cutoff. And I was wondering if we were going to lose the green belt status. So, and
well, we have over 20 acres, but it's divided by corn husk.
yeah, but they're only,
But you're only annexing the south side.
the
I mean,
north side.
The north side.
Okay.
So in other words, pretty much answer my question, but we're also against being annexed,
Yes, we're against it.
mainly because of the taxes. And if we're going to lose the green belt status, then I suppose taxes are really going to go up.
Correct.
So I think, what was it? It was that north side was only 7.5 acres or something under cultivation. So then that don't cover it then, right?
Well, but the total parcel is, if you're currently in Greenbelt, you qualified at a time when it was a part of a larger tract, and they've continued to honor that.
Yeah, because the parcel on the south side is also in the green belt.
Right.
So but we can't conclude that both of them do we?
Well, again, that's a Sarpy County assessor question. Again, if they're treating you as Greenbelt, even with those separated, you're qualifying for Greenbelt under the state program.
So would that exempt us from being annexed or not?
That'll be a question for the city council ultimately. In terms of my motion here this evening, I would ask that you be excluded from that if it's Greenbelt, because again, we can talk philosophically on why that is further up here.
Okay, well, that's pretty much all I had.
Well,
And
Do you have anything, Roxanne?
I agree with what he says and what the two people before us said. This land's been in our family since the 40s, and it's being farmed with corn and soybeans, and we're against it being developed. And my name's Roxanne Meisinger, for the record. I already signed in.
Good, thank you. Is there anybody else stepping forward, either for or against? Seeing nobody, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, your wishes?
Mr. Shuchek, nobody came forward to speak, but the tax lot F that sits just, I think it's south of Menards there off of 25th Street, is that also Greenbelt?
West of Menards, it's tax lot 4F.
And as again,
That is-
driving by there, topography wise, that drops down tremendously in terms of challenges for development, but it's continues to be farmed. Well, again, philosophically, and Mr. Arnie, is it Arn or Arnie? Arnie, Here's the issue philosophically. If we raise people's taxes just because they're currently using it for ag in their green belt, and taxes go up the percentage that they will, basically for some of these small plots and farms, it makes it not economical to farm anymore. So basically, we as a city are forcing people in some respects to sell. If that land was something they wanted to sell and a developer was going to come in and develop it, for example, the Meisinger property there and also the Plambeck property to the north, we've got Sunrise. They obviously bought that at some point. Sunrise got developed, and these two farms have stayed there. They either haven't wanted to sell, or the price hasn't been right, or for whatever reason they've decided we're going to keep farming. And philosophically, I guess where my problem is, if we just raise their taxes to force a sale and hope to create development, philosophically that doesn't feel right for me. And I appreciate it ends up with some donuts or whatever you want to call them in the city. But at some point, the Meisingers or the Plambecks may decide it's time to sell. And I can tell you as an attorney, a lot of times that happens when a generation shifts, because then there's tax advantages to how you get taxed upon a sale of the family farm based on stepped-up basis with the previous generation passing and the new generation coming in. Whether or not that's their reason, that's not our concern. But again, for people that farm, personally, I don't think that philosophically raising their taxes to force them out of it so we can get somebody to buy it necessarily means somebody will develop it. If that land was economically viable to develop, I would think a developer may have offered them enough money to make it appealing, or they may just believe, you know what, we want to keep farming, and who am I to try to force them out of that position? So that's why philosophically I think the green belts should be excluded. Again, I know we did that 10 or so years ago when we were doing annexations along Base Lake Road. I think it was when we were going down to take the land which became the baseball village, because you couldn't jump to annex. We were going to annex a whole series of land in a row there, which was farmers. And again, ultimately we pulled those out of the annexation package. Nobody challenged what was probably flag annexation at that time, because all we did was go down the road, but nobody challenged it and it went through. So if there's further discussion, happy to have it. Otherwise, you'll probably hear a motion very similar to my prior two motions on this item.
Thank you, Commissioners. Commissioner Arden?
I think this one I might agree with you on, but the difference with this one is you're not creating the donuts. These are truly west of the current city limits, all three of these properties, right? So you know, you're gonna have really, at the end of the day, if you make your motion, you're gonna have just that one little parcel. Is that 48, tax lot 48, I believe? Just a little, there's a little 40? 4E, just that little house right there, up right against 25th Street. And you'll have the one that's back there behind the Chick-fil-A and that. So really just be those two lots is what would be into this if you make your amendment. So this one I might think differently because it's not really donut to me.
Okay. And again, philosophies can differ, and ultimately it's the city council that gets to make the choice. But philosophically, that's always been the discussion on why you don't, or you try not to annex farmland, because when the taxes go up to such a great extent, when people are getting $3 a bushel for corn or whatever the numbers are at the time, it's hard enough to make a living. It almost forces a sale because the taxes go up, and I don't want to be in that position personally. So with that said, I would make a motion to adopt the annexation package for area number 6 with the exception of tax lot 4F, tax lot C, and what I think is I guess Mr. Shuchuk helped me out here, the northwest.
Part of the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter, east of Cedar Island Road and north of Cornhusker Road.
Thank you. And the reasons for those annexations with those exceptions is based on consistency with the city's comprehensive plan.
I'll second. I have a motion and a second.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I thought you said
I actually second. But thank you. Commissioners, any other questions on the motion itself? If not, please vote.
Vote is 8-1. Motion carries.
Motion passed. It will go to the city council with our recommendation. April
7 to 1.
7 7-1.
There's only 8 of us here tonight.
Yeah.
Sorry, 7-1, motion carries.
Okay, that concludes our public hearings for this evening. We do have some current business